Did you know many of your favorite actors are currently rotting in prison? But you may not know that. Let's explore their stories and what caused them to go to jail and how long they will stay there. 1. Ryan Grantham. Ryan Grantham was a young actor with an impressive resume, featuring appearances in shows like Riverdale and small film roles that hinted at a promising future. But in March 2020, the 24-year-old shocked Canada and the rest of the world when he was arrested for a chilling crime: the murder of his own mother, Barbara Waite. On that fateful day, he shot her in the back of the head while she was playing the piano, an act so cold and calculated that it left family, friends, and fans reeling. Even more disturbing, Grantham recorded a video confession shortly after committing the murder. The footage shows a visibly distraught but eerily composed young man admitting to what he'd done. The story took another bizarre twist when authorities discovered that Grantham had also planned to assassinate Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. With 3 guns, ammunition, and Molotov cocktails loaded into his car, he set off on a road trip, only to abandon the plan and turn himself in. During his trial, psychiatric evaluations revealed Grantham's struggles with severe depression, which appeared to play a critical role in his actions. 2. Harvey Weinstein. Harvey Weinstein was once the undisputed king of Hollywood, an Academy Award-winning producer with a Midas touch for finding and elevating top-tier talent. From Shakespeare in Love to countless other critically acclaimed films, his name became synonymous with success, luxury, and industry power. But beneath the glitz and glamour, a dark reality was brewing. For years, rumors had circulated that Weinstein abused his position, coercing and assaulting women behind closed doors. The Whisper Network eventually gave way to a global reckoning that many credit as the spark for the Me Too movement. By 2019, Weinstein's world was coming apart. He faced a flood of allegations ranging from sexual misconduct to outright assault. In New York, he was convicted and sentenced to 23 years behind bars for his crimes. But that was just the beginning. In a subsequent Los Angeles trial, a jury found him guilty of further offenses, adding another 16 years to his prison term. Various testimonies describe the irreparable harm he inflicted on victims like Jane Doe No. 1, demonstrating the devastating emotional toll of his acts. He was held accountable for his actions, and the added 16-year sentence confirmed it. Now the man who once ruled Tinseltown sits behind bars, his fortune and reputation in tatters. A stark reminder that influence can't shield someone from justice. 3. Ian Watkins. Ian Watkins was once the charismatic lead singer of Lost Prophets, a band that gained a loyal global following in the early 2000s. Fans flocked to their energetic gigs, singing along to every lyric. Watkins carried the aura of a rock idol, beloved for his dramatic stage presence and edgy style. Nobody could have predicted the monstrous behavior that lay hidden beneath that veneer of fame. Everything unraveled in 2012 when police arrested Watkins on charges involving children. As investigators sifted through his digital footprint, they discovered stomach-turning evidence of exploitation and abuse. The revelations were so disturbing that seasoned law enforcement officials described it as one of the worst cases they had encountered. At first, bandmates and fans were in disbelief, unwilling to accept the possibility that their hero could commit such atrocities. But with mounting proof, Watkins pleaded guilty in 2013. His crimes included attempted abuse of infants, the possession of illegal materials, and more unspeakable acts that defied comprehension. The band instantly disintegrated, and the music industry effectively buried any mention of Lost Prophets, wanting nothing to do with its disgraced frontman. Watkins was sentenced to 29 years in prison with extended 6-year supervision upon release. 4. Shmurda. Corey Miller, widely known by his stage name Shmurda, was a driving force in Southern hip-hop. A member of the legendary Miller family, brother to Master P and Silk the Shocker, he had all the ingredients for success: major label backing, charting singles, and a loyal fan base. However, his fate took a grim turn in 2002 when a nightclub scuffle escalated into tragedy. A 16-year-old named Steve Thomas lost his life, and Shmurda found himself at the center of a murder investigation. The prosecution's case hinged heavily on witness testimonies that identified Shmurda as the shooter. but soon controversy and doubt crept in. Over the years, two key witnesses recanted their statements, asserting that police intimidation and coercion had influenced their original testimony. Even the security guard on site, Darnell Jordan, later revealed that he was essentially detained by investigators until he agreed to testify against the rapper. Despite these revelations, Shmurda remains behind bars serving a life sentence. Public figures, including Kim Kardashian, have advocated revisiting the evidence in his case. They point to inconsistencies, potential misconduct, and new details that may unveil a miscarriage of justice. Yet the wheels of the legal system move slowly, and overturning a murder conviction is never easy. Fifth, Austin Jones. Austin Jones rose to stardom in a distinctly modern way, through YouTube covers and original songs. With a sweet, boyish face and a knack for tapping into the latest pop trends, he quickly gathered a sizable following, amassing over 500,000 subscribers. Fans praised his vocal range and emotional renditions of popular hits, turning his channel into a teen's dream space. But in 2015, murmurs of misconduct began swirling. Jones unexpectedly withdrew from the popular Vans Warped tour, citing personal reasons, but soon released a bizarre apology video on his YouTube channel. He claimed to have engaged in inappropriate conversations with underage fans, insisting it was a misunderstanding. Yet the explanation left more questions than answers. In 2017, things took a drastic turn. Federal agents raided his home and discovered evidence that confirmed years of grooming and explicit requests from Jones to underage fans. Prosecutors revealed the extent of his manipulative tactics, emphasizing how he leveraged his internet fame to gain his victims' trust. Finally, in 2019, a court handed down a 10-year prison sentence. As part of the repercussions, YouTube permanently deleted his channel, scrubbing away the online presence that had once made him so popular. 6. Bobby Shmurda. Bobby Shmurda burst onto the music scene in 2014, dropping Hot Nenomai, a track that became an instant sensation. At just 20 years old, he held the industry in a chokehold, making waves with his gritty sound and the now iconic Shmoney dance. Fans and critics alike pegged him as the next big thing in hip-hop, anticipating massive chart success and heavyweight collaborations. But as fast as his star rose, it came crashing down. That same year, authorities were closing in on Bobby Shmurda for a string of serious offenses. Initially charged with weapon possession, he soon found himself in even deeper legal trouble. In December, he was arrested again, facing conspiracy to commit murder charges linked to alleged gang activities. As if that weren't enough, while in custody at Rikers Island, he was caught attempting to smuggle a sharp object into the facility. In 2016, Bobby Shmurda opted for a plea deal. He pleaded guilty to conspiracy and weapons possession. Though the original sentence was 7 years, additional time was added due to his attempt to bring contraband into prison, extending his incarceration period. This drastic turn of events put a bright young talent's career on ice. By the time he was released in early 2021, hip-hop's landscape had drastically changed. 7. Colin Rashad Walker. Colin Rashad Walker isn't a household name on the level of some in Hollywood, but the scale of his crimes shook many in the social media world. Known for his magnetic presence and carefully curated image online, Walker painted himself as a mentor eager to help women break into the business. Using platforms like Instagram, he cast a wide net, his supportive messages and slick, inspirational videos drawing in vulnerable people seeking guidance and opportunity. However, once prospective models and influencers entered his orbit, the truth was far darker. Walker's friendly facade morphed into a tool of manipulation. Victims reported feeling pressured, coerced, and blackmailed in acts they never consented to. Promises of stardom and exposure were dangled in front of them like bait, only to be snatched away the second they hesitated. Legal authorities stepped in after a slew of complaints painted a pattern of systemic abuse. As investigators dug deeper, the sheer extent of his crimes became startlingly clear. Multiple victims came forward with near-identical stories of exploitation. In the end, the court handed down a decisive verdict, a 50-year prison sentence. An online influencer who once showcased lavish lifestyles and a polished brand found himself behind bars, with survivors finally feeling a measure of closure. Vybz Kartel. Adidja Palmer, celebrated worldwide as Vybz Kartel, stormed the dancehall scene with explosive hits, provocative lyrics, and an undeniable stage presence. Whether collaborating with mainstream stars or feuding with fellow Jamaican artists, he always made headlines. Dancehall fans revered him for his inventive wordplay and pulsating beats that kept parties alive well into the night. However, beneath the music was a darker reality of street alliances and violent disputes. In 2011, Kartel was arrested on drug and firearm charges. Although he secured bail for those offenses, a more serious accusation quickly followed: the murder of Clive Lizard Williams, allegedly tied to a stolen firearm. The prosecution contended that Kartel orchestrated Williams's killing as a show of power and retribution. After one of the longest trials in Jamaican history, lasting 65 days, an 11-member jury found Kartel guilty in 2014. Despite fervent attempts to appeal based on alleged tampering of evidence and a compromised jury, he received a life sentence with the possibility of parole only after serving 32 years and 6 months. This means the once prolific artist could remain behind bars until at least 2046. 9. Bill Cosby. For decades, Bill Cosby was adored as America's dad, a wholesome figure exuding wisdom and humor on the wildly popular sitcom, The Cosby Show. He was credited with reshaping the portrayal of African-American families on television, raking in awards and accolades for his pioneering work. Yet beneath the surface of that paternal persona, an avalanche of accusations started to surface. Claims that he had drugged and assaulted numerous women dating back years. For a long time, Cosby seemed untouchable. His philanthropic deeds, combined with his spotless on-screen image, made the allegations tough to believe for many fans. But as more brave women stepped forward, some of them well-known, others private individuals, patterns began to emerge that could no longer be ignored. The Me Too movement accelerated the scrutiny, transforming whispers into a legal showdown. Ultimately, a Pennsylvania court found Cosby guilty of sexual assault, marking him as the first major celebrity to be convicted following the rise of the #MeToo. The dramatic verdict was a watershed moment, an undeniable statement that power, fame, and a once sterling legacy offer no shield against accountability. He was handed a prison sentence, though he would later be controversially released on a technicality in 2021, when a court overturned his conviction due to a prior agreement with a prosecutor. 10th Young Thug. Young Thug, born Jeffrey Lamar Williams, didn't just shake up the hip-hop scene, he practically redefined it. Known for his unmistakable voice, flamboyant fashion choices, and a non-stop flow of hits like Lifestyle and Pick Up the Phone, he quickly became a chart-topping force. Alongside fellow Atlanta talents, he pushed trap music into the mainstream, collaborating with major artists and racking up award nominations. But in May 2022, fans were blindsided when federal authorities announced a sweeping indictment linking Young Thug to gang-related activities stretching back to 2013. According to prosecutors, he wasn't just making music, he was allegedly calling shots for a notorious street collective. The 56-count indictment claimed everything from firearms offenses to orchestrating serious violent crimes, including the murder of a rival gang member. As if that weren't enough, a raid on his home uncovered more incriminating evidence. Controlled substances intended for distribution, along with sawed-off shotguns and rifles. That discovery piled more charges onto an already towering list of allegations. Young Thug, once commanding global attention for his innovative style, found himself behind bars, awaiting a trial that could spell decades in prison. 11. R. Kelly. R. Kelly once dominated R&B with chart-topping hits like I Believe I Can Fly, crafting an image as a masterful vocalist and producer. His songwriting prowess and smooth stage presence made him a global sensation, packing stadiums and earning Grammy accolades. Yet whispers of misconduct and worse had dogged him since the 1990s. Those whispers finally became an unavoidable roar in the late 2010s, culminating in an arrest that revealed years of exploitation, abuse, and manipulation. The turning point arrived when multiple women came forward in a documentary series, sharing graphic, disturbing testimonials of what they endured. Claim after claim painted Kelly as a predator who preyed on vulnerable teenagers and young women, employing psychological control and violence. Investigators uncovered evidence of illegal underage marriages, like the infamous 1994 incident involving singer Aaliyah, and videotapes that showed the star engaged in explicit acts with minors. By 2021, Kelly faced a tidal wave of criminal charges, including human trafficking and producing explicit material involving minors. In June 2022, he was sentenced to 30 years in prison. Despite his repeated attempts at denying wrongdoing or painting his accusers as opportunists, the evidence was overwhelming. 12. Toby Willis. Toby Willis achieved fame as the patriarch of the Willis clan, a family band featured on TLC's reality show, The Willis Family. With 12 musically gifted children, the ensemble swiftly won over audiences, blending country, bluegrass, and pop influences into polished performances. Their popularity soared in 2014 when they made it to the quarterfinals on America's Got Talent, showcasing what seemed like an idyllic, tight-knit household. However, beneath that harmonious image was a nightmare that would destroy their reputation. In 2016, police arrested Toby Willis on charges of sexual abuse involving minors. News of his crimes sent shockwaves through the fan community and the entertainment industry, both of which had embraced the family for their feel-good backstory. The horrific reality was that Willis had been preying on young girls, including members of his own family and a relative, all under the age of 18. In 2017, Toby Willis pleaded guilty to 4 counts of sexual abuse of a minor. The judge sentenced him to 40 years in prison with no possibility of parole and mandated $1.4 million in restitution to his victims. The court also required that he register as a sex offender for life, ensuring that he would never escape the shadow of his crimes. Trizynasty Big Lurch. Antron Singleton, better known as Big Lurch, started his career in the late 90s with a promising rap future ahead. Standing at 6 feet 7 inches, he was a noticeable figure whose deep, resonant voice added intensity to his verses. But he struggled to find mainstream success, and after a near-fatal car accident caused by a drunk driver, everything changed. Plagued by chronic pain and depression, Big Lurch began abusing PCP to cope, an addiction that would unleash terrifying hallucinations and paranoia. In 2002, under the influence of PCP, he committed a crime so horrific it still sends chills through the hip-hop community. Believing he saw demons in the stomach of his 21-year-old roommate, he brutally attacked and killed her in a gruesome act of violence. When police arrived, Singleton was in such a disoriented state that he appeared unaware of what he had just done. In November 2003, a court found him guilty of first-degree murder and sentenced him to life in prison without parole. His legal team attempted to mount an insanity defense, arguing that his delusions were drug-induced. However, the fact that he voluntarily consumed PCP weakened that argument in the eyes of the court. 14. Tay-K Taymor. Trayvon McIntyre, known professionally as Tay-K, was only 16 years old when he first caught the music world's attention. With a raw, unpolished flow and a bold, rebellious attitude, he had the makings of a street legend. In 2017, his track The Race blew up the Billboard Hot 100, propelled by the track's edgy subject matter, a real-time chronicle of his life on the run from authorities. But behind the viral success lay a litany of serious charges. Tay-K had been implicated in a 2016 home invasion near Fort Worth, Texas, which left a 21-year-old man dead. Placed under house arrest, Tay-K brazenly cut off his ankle monitor and fled. Rather than hiding quietly, he recorded The Race, glamorizing his flight and taunting the very authorities hunting him. His multi-state run came to a swift end after 3 months, but the damage was done. Prosecutors painted him as not just a misled teen, but a willing participant in violent felonies. In 2019, he was handed a 55-year prison sentence for the murder charge, effectively ending any chance of a sustained rap career. Despite fleeting online support from fans who saw him as a misunderstood antihero, the legal system's verdict was unforgiving. Tay-K's story reminds us that talent, no matter how big, can be overshadowed by deadly choices. The short burst of fame he experienced became a cautionary tale for aspiring artists. Glorifying crime might garner attention, but it inevitably ends with painful consequences. 15. Danny Masterson. For a generation of sitcom fans, Danny Masterson was the laid-back, sarcastic Stephen Hyde from that 70s show. The guy who always had a witty comeback and a rebellious streak. His fame soared with each season as viewers identified with his no-nonsense persona. Outside of television, Masterson dabbled in DJing and film, carving out a comfortable life in Hollywood's privileged circles. But the mid-2010s brought troubling accusations of sexual assault into the spotlight, prompting some to question his association with the Church of Scientology. By June 2020, Los Angeles prosecutors charged him with 3 counts of rape. Masterson fervently denied the allegations, framing them as fabricated stories designed to tarnish his reputation. Yet as more women stepped forward, the case took on a life of its own in the media. Entertainment representatives quickly cut ties, and streaming platforms removed content featuring him. In a profession that thrives on public goodwill, Masterson's brand became radioactive overnight. As he awaited trial, the allegations spurred deeper conversations about power imbalances in Hollywood and the importance of believing survivors. In September 2023, a retrial ended in a guilty verdict on multiple counts. The judge handed Masterson a lengthy prison sentence, underscoring the severity of the crimes. 16th, Zach Avery. Zachary Horwitz, better known as Zach Avery, seemed to have it all: a dashing Hollywood persona, a budding acting career, and a knack for networking with industry elites. But beyond the polished Instagram posts and glamorous events, Horwitz was orchestrating a colossal fraud that ensnared not just high-profile investors, but also close acquaintances. Posing as a film financier, he convinced victims that he held lucrative distribution deals with major platforms like Netflix and HBO. Lured by the promise of sky-high returns, investors forked over millions, often excited about the chance to back potential Hollywood hits. Unbeknownst to them, the entire operation was a house of cards, a Ponzi scheme that depended on recruiting new investors to pay off old ones. When the scheme collapsed, it did so spectacularly. Federal authorities uncovered the webs of falsified documents, bogus claims, and non-existent licensing contracts that Horwitz had used to maintain his charade. In the end, he was sentenced to a staggering 20 years in prison, alongside a court order to pay back $230 million. 17th, Zara Phythian and Victor Mark. Zara Phythian earned admiration for her martial arts prowess and screen presence, even landing a minor role in a high-profile Marvel film. Yet while many saw a disciplined, talented performer, they never imagined the disturbing secrets she and her husband, Victor Mark, kept hidden. Between 2005 and 2008, the couple engaged in repeated acts of sexual abuse against a minor, known only as A in court proceedings. The victim, who bravely testified at Nottingham Crown Court, recounted how the pair manipulated and exploited her. They allegedly threatened her, fostering a sense of entrapment and powerlessness. The revelations were nothing short of harrowing, tearing down any facade of respectability the couple had maintained. The trial uncovered more dark layers, as a second victim accused Victor Mark of offenses between 2002 and 2003. The judge and investigating officer praised the survivor's courage, emphasizing how challenging it is to come forward, especially against seemingly powerful or respected figures. Both Phythian and Mark received prison sentences that reflected the gravity of their crimes, offering a measure of justice for those they'd harmed. 18. Joe Sun. Joe Sun was never a Hollywood megastar, but he briefly caught the public eye with a minor role in the Austin Powers franchise. Standing alongside comedic giants, he delivered a quirky character performance that, at the time, seemed little more than a small footnote in cinematic history. However, years later, his name would resurface for deeply disturbing reasons that overshadowed any comedic cameo. In 1990, Joe Sun participated in a horrific abduction and sexual assault in Huntington Beach, terrorizing a young woman on Christmas Eve. He managed to slip under law enforcement's radar for years, but a subsequent arrest for an unrelated felony led to a DNA match that sealed his fate. When investigators revisited the case, the details that emerged were horrifying. Prolonged torture, physical assault, and psychological torment inflicted upon the victim. He was convicted in 2011 and sentenced to life in prison for the gruesome attack. But even behind bars, Joson's violent record continued to mount. He was later found guilty of manslaughter following the death of his cellmate, Michael Graham, revealing a level of brutality that stunned even hardened prison officials. 19th, Jim Gordon. Jim Gordon was a legendary drummer whose rhythmic talents graced records by Eric Clapton, George Harrison, and countless other iconic artists in the 1960s and 70s. Many music historians hail him as one of the greatest session drummers ever, contributing to hits that shaped classic rock and blues. Yet behind the scenes, he struggled with debilitating mental health issues, including schizophrenia, that remained improperly treated. Gordon's condition worsened over time. He reported hearing voices, particularly his mother's, constantly berating him. Doctors tragically misdiagnosed him with alcoholism, failing to recognize his severe psychiatric condition. As the voices intensified, so did his paranoia and fear, culminating in a nightmarish incident in 1983. In a psychotic episode, Gordon fatally attacked his mother. The crime shocked the music world. Nobody could reconcile the virtuoso drummer, whose deft touch had elevated countless recordings, with the man now standing trial for murder. Despite eventually receiving the correct diagnosis of schizophrenia, Gordon was sentenced to 16 years to life. Due to the perceived ongoing threat he posed, parole was repeatedly denied. 20. War Machine. Jonathan Paul Koppenhaver, better known as War Machine, made his mark in the world of mixed martial arts. With a rugged demeanor and a raw, aggressive fighting style, he amassed a following of fight fans who appreciated his ferocity in the cage. But anger and jealousy lurked beneath his professional persona. Outside the octagon, War Machine's life veered into a violent spiral that culminated in a brutal attack on his ex-partner, adult film star Christy Mack. In August 2014, Koppenhaver discovered that Mack had moved on, dating Corey Thomas. Consumed by rage, he invaded Mack's home, assaulting both her and Thomas. The injuries Mack sustained were horrendous: multiple broken bones, missing teeth, and a lacerated liver, among other horrors. The story instantly captured media attention, casting a spotlight on the stark reality of domestic violence. During the subsequent trial, prosecutors depicted him as a man unmoored by a thirst for control, a fighter who extended his brutality outside the cage. The jury concurred, finding him guilty on more than 24 counts, including kidnapping. Ultimately, a judge sentenced him to life in prison with the possibility of parole after 36 years, effectively ending any prospect of returning to MMA. 21. Todd Chrisley. Todd Chrisley was the flamboyant head of the family on Chrisley Knows Best, a reality show that boasted humor, heart, and a lavish lifestyle. Viewers tuned in to watch the Chrisleys navigate outrageous family drama while living in opulence: private jets, designer wardrobes, and sprawling mansions. From the outside looking in, everything sparkled. Yet behind the scenes, a storm was brewing. In 2019, Todd and his wife, Julie, were slapped with multiple federal charges: tax evasion, bank fraud, and wire fraud. Prosecutors allege the couple had hidden millions of dollars in income and falsified financial documents to secure hefty loans they never intended to repay. The discrepancy between their showy appearances and their alleged financial chicanery left fans reeling. During their trial, a steady stream of evidence mounted against them, including emails, misleading credit reports, and misrepresented net worth statements. Despite Todd's ardent claims of innocence, the court ultimately ruled in favor of the prosecution. He was sentenced to 12 years in federal prison, leaving him incarcerated in Pensacola, Florida. The once glamorous reality star found himself trading designer suits for prison attire. 22nd of July, Chrisley. Julie Chrisley shared her husband Todd's high-flying reality TV lifestyle, catapulting to fame on Chrisley Knows Best. She projected an image of the doting, level-headed partner, often reigning in Todd's more eccentric moments. Their banter, comedic timing, and devotion to family were key factors that made the show a hit. However, when prosecutors unveiled a massive fraud case against the Chrisleys in 2019, Julie was far from a mere bystander. Alongside Todd, she was indicted on multiple charges of tax evasion, bank fraud, and wire fraud. The government claimed they had concealed millions of dollars in income, dodged tax obligations, and provided banks with falsified reports to secure substantial loans. The narrative of a wholesome, close-knit family began to unravel. In the courtroom, the prosecution presented an onslaught of financial documents, including doctored statements, fabricated credit histories, and questionable business records. Despite portraying herself as a trusting wife who left the finances to Todd, the court found Julie equally culpable. She received a 7-year federal prison sentence, which she is currently serving in Lexington, Kentucky. Along with incarceration came restitution orders, leaving the Chrisley empire in tatters. 23rd O.J. Simpson. Orenthal James, O.J. Simpson, personified athletic excellence and charming star power. A Heisman Trophy-winning running back, Simpson seamlessly transitioned into a post-football life of sports commentary and Hollywood cameos. However, his image took a catastrophic hit in 1994 when he became the prime suspect in the brutal murders of his ex-wife, Nicole Brown Simpson, and her friend Ron Goldman. The trial of the century ended with a controversial not guilty verdict, allowing Simpson to walk free in one of modern history's most polarizing legal outcomes. But Simpson's legal troubles didn't end there. In 2007, he led a group of individuals into a Las Vegas hotel room to reclaim what he argued were stolen sports memorabilia items, guns in tow. Prosecutors charged him with multiple felonies, including armed robbery and kidnapping. At the subsequent trial, the court no longer extended the same leniency. In 2008, a jury found him guilty on 12 charges, and Simpson was sentenced to up to 33 years in prison, with eligibility for parole after 9. Many saw this as delayed karma, while others argued it was a heavy-handed penalty made possible by his prior notoriety. In 2017, he was granted parole, walking out of Lovelock Correctional Center after serving 9 years. 24th, Phil Spector. Phil Spector was more than just a producer. He was a musical innovator who shaped rock and roll history with his signature wall of sound. From the Ronettes to the Beatles, his sonic footprint defined an entire era of pop music, delivering hits still beloved today. Despite a prickly public persona, few doubted his genius within the recording studio. However, Spector's personal life was fraught with allegations of erratic, sometimes dangerous behavior. In 2003, actress Lana Clarkson was found dead from a gunshot wound in Spector's California mansion. Though Spector claimed the death was a tragic accident, law enforcement and forensic evidence suggested otherwise. He faced a highly publicized murder trial that further exposed his turbulent temperament and controlling demeanor. The first trial ended in a mistrial, but a second trial in 2009 brought a guilty verdict for second-degree murder. Spector received a prison sentence of 19 years to life. Behind bars, his health deteriorated, though he continued to maintain innocence, often citing mental illness and a misunderstood public image. Despite multiple appeals, the conviction held firm. In January 2021, Spector died in prison, leaving a towering but tarnished legacy. He forever altered the landscape of popular music, yet his final years were spent as an inmate overshadowed by the violent circumstances surrounding Clarkson's death. 25th, Suge Knight. Marion Suge Knight was a giant in the music business, literally and figuratively. As co-founder of Death Row Records, he propelled rap legends like Dr. Dre, Tupac Shakur, and Snoop Dogg into superstardom, shaping the sound of 1990s West Coast hip-hop. But Knight also developed a fearsome reputation, with many describing him as a volatile figure who resolved disputes through intimidation or worse. The turning point arrived in January 2015, following an altercation on the set of the biographical film Straight Outta Compton. Knight, reportedly enraged, drove his pickup truck into two men in a parking lot, killing local businessman Terry Carter and injuring filmmaker Clee Denial Sloan. Surveillance footage depicted a disturbing sequence of events that Knight claimed was self-defense. Prosecutors charged him with murder, arguing Knight had deliberately run the men down. While legal maneuvers stretched on, Knight's health declined in custody, and he complained about inadequate medical treatment. Eventually, to avoid a potential life sentence, Knight accepted a plea deal for voluntary manslaughter in 2018, receiving a 28-year prison sentence. 26th, Michael Vick. Michael Vick soared to NFL stardom as a dual-threat quarterback with lightning speed and a cannon arm. An athletic marvel who turned routine plays into highlight reels. Drafted first overall by the Atlanta Falcons in 2001, he became the face of a franchise, inking lucrative endorsements and captivating fans of all ages. Off the field, however, he was entangled in an entirely different world. In 2007, law enforcement busted an illegal dogfighting ring called Bad News Kennels, located on a property owned by Vick. The brutality revealed in court documents was shocking. Animals were housed in poor conditions, forced to fight, and were sometimes executed if deemed unfit for competition. Public outrage soared, and sponsors swiftly withdrew their support. When the case went to trial, Vick pleaded guilty to federal felony charges, resulting in a 23-month prison sentence and an indefinite NFL suspension. This turn of events triggered heated debates about animal welfare, second chances, and the power of contrition. Some believed Vick's fame had shielded him for too long, while others saw him as a scapegoat for a larger cultural problem involving dogfighting in certain communities. Upon release, Vick staged a comeback in the NFL, even earning a Pro Bowl selection in 2010. Yet he remained a highly controversial figure. 27th, Wesley Snipes. Wesley Snipes made a name for himself as a versatile actor, kicking off with memorable performances in films like New Jack City and Blade. The martial arts expert and charismatic lead swiftly became a blockbuster draw, showcasing a blend of physical prowess and acting skill. However, his success story hit a legal roadblock in 2006 when he, along with two co-defendants, was indicted for tax evasion. Federal prosecutors charged that Snipes had failed to file tax returns for several years, amounting to millions in unpaid taxes. A swirl of controversy ensued, with Snipes initially denying wrongdoing, arguing that he had received erroneous advice from tax advisors who claimed the federal tax code was invalid. The court, however, was not convinced. In 2008, Snipes was found guilty on 3 misdemeanor counts of failing to file tax returns. Though he faced up to 16 years in prison, the judge sentenced him to 3 years. While his defense claimed ignorance and reliance on professionals, prosecutors insisted that he had willfully avoided his obligations. The sentencing underscored a clear legal stance. Star power does not grant immunity from the IRS.